This is the new Honda HR-V, a hybrid crossover with tech basing on Honda's 2 decades of Formula One experience. Yes, that's what I said, F1. Honda HR-V is the largest B crossover, touching the lower end of the compact crossover segment. It offers the same or more interior space than some larger cars. At the same time, the boot is, at least on paper, the smallest in its class. Which doesn't mean it's useless, more about that later. Honda HR-V stands out in terms of design. It's a coupe SUV with almost 19 cm ground clearance, similar to the much smaller Opel Mokka or the slightly larger Citroen C4. Honda designers don't want all their cars to look the same, and without the logo on the grille, it would be hard to tell what brand this is. Maybe Honda Civic has a similar fascia, but that's about it. Also, it's worth noting this car is the global version, but North America will get a slightly different model, perhaps somewhat larger, to better suit local market needs. Okay, let's take this thing for a drive and find out what tech trickled down under the bonnet of the HR-V. 131 horsepower and 253 Nm of torque means better dynamics than in the previous gen, but these are hardly F1 numbers. The HR-V is now offered only as a hybrid, that's called EHEV, says the badge. All cars are now front-wheel drive. The high ground clearance is good, mainly for going over bumps. The ECU constantly switches between electric, hybrid and petrol propulsion, depending on the situation, but the main goal is efficiency. At high constant speeds, the car is powered by the petrol engine and the electric motor is used as a boost, for example, when you need to accelerate to overtake. And this is 20 years of Honda's F1 experience. By the way, Honda was big in F1 back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, then it had some ups and downs. It withdrew from F1, came back, and finally it dethroned Mercedes, winning half of the races in 2021. Based on the product calendar, the HR-V should have been released in 2021, and it was barely. I suppose the late release was due to supply chain disruption, but deep down I'm wondering whether Honda wasn't waiting for the Grand Prix results to launch the HR-V and use the F1 reference in the PR materials. Alright, you're more likely to be stuck in traffic in a Honda HR-V on the streets of Abu Dhabi or Monaco than to win the Grand Prix title over there. So let's talk what's really important. Fuel economy is, according to the spec sheet, 5.4 liters per 100 kilometers combined, and that's achievable. At motorway speed, you'll be using more than 7 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's also realistic. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is 10.6 seconds for the base spec and 10.7 seconds for the slightly heavier middle and top trim models. I beat the faster time by half a second on wet tarmac. But let's look at more realistic situations like acceleration from, say, 30 to 40 kilometers per hour to overtake a tractor or a bus. This is when you can really feel the electric boost. Only at higher speeds, the engine and CVT noise become apparent. By the way, the CVT simulates gear change, which gives you a better feel of acceleration. And the paddles on the steering wheel are not for shifting, but for recuperation level adjustments. When you're like rolling to a stop or driving down a small incline-decline hill, you can put some juice back into the battery so you can drive more in EV mode, and I'm sure that's also something very F1. Handling is surprisingly good for a small crossover with high ground clearance. I tried taking a few sharp corners in the rain with ESP off, and I never felt understeer, but I was sliding about in my seat, which has very little lateral support. Steering is precise and the suspension evens out all the bumps. Honda also boasts it made the brake pedal bigger and moved it 5 mm closer to the gas pedal, thus reducing driver fatigue. It sounds to me like a step towards spirited driving. In the press release, Honda talks a fair bit about noise, vibration and harshness. I recall the Jazz was very well soundproofed, and the HRV is supposed to be even better, as Honda engineers added stiffness and more dampening to isolate the cabin from the engine bay as well as from the road noise. And it seems they failed miserably. On the motorway, it's just loud inside. Perhaps it's because the speed limit on Polish motorways is 140 km per hour, but even at 120, the HRV is noisy. Maybe it's the rain and the mud on the roads. There are a lot of construction sites around my test routes, and those trucks delivering stuff rarely have their tires washed before leaving the site. I can hear the sand and grit hitting the underside of the car. Perhaps it's the tires. The car arrived from Japan on summer tires, and Honda press office scrambled to put winter tires on it. Maybe it's the intercontis making the noise? Anyway, around town and outside up to about 60-70 km per hour, the HRV is fine, but any faster and it's getting unpleasantly loud. At first I can hear the noise from under the car, but not from the suspension, and then the engine noise and higher revs, that becomes noticeable. Maybe on a dry day and on different tires it's going to be better. If you notice anything during your test drive, let me know in the comment section below. Also, make sure you're okay with visibility. You may be sitting up high like in a chair, but the window line is also quite high and the wing mirrors are large, so it takes a dozen kilometers or so to get used to it. And while we're on the subject of driving position, I wish the reach adjustment of the steering column were a bit longer so that I could stretch my legs a bit more. Also, lumbar support adjustment would be nice. These seats aren't bad, but they could be better. I often say Japanese and European car makers have different philosophy when it comes to driver aids, especially adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assist. The Japanese tend to leave the systems to act at the last moment, which can sometimes be jarring, whereas the Europeans like the systems to work with the driver at all times. Honda is taking the more European approach, I guess. Adaptive cruise control may still be a bit jerky, but that could be because of the powertrain. However, the active lane keeping assist works perfectly. Heading into a turn right now, and look how it works with me. It helps me. It's brilliant. I wish the traffic sign recognition would not only read signs, but also use sat-nav to recognize when the limit ends. For many kilometers you can drive with the wrong speed limit or without any speed limit information. At least Android Auto directions are displayed on the instrument panel. Android Auto is wired, so you don't need to buy the top spec to get the wireless charger. Honda gets a lot of kit as standard. Heated steering wheel is standard mid-trim up. Heated seats are standard regardless of the trim. The same goes for electrically operated and folding wing mirrors. Also, the display, driver's display, is standard, although the speedo remains analog. The 9-inch screen with sat-nav, Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay are standard as well, and so is connectivity for the My Honda Plus app, which Honda couldn't get to work for me. Parking sensors, front and rear, reversing camera, everything is standard. Climate control as well, although from mid-trim up, it's dual zone. Speaking of climate control, Honda got rid of the touch panel from the previous generation, and now we get physical knobs and buttons. Perhaps other car makers should notice and also go back to what clients really like. From mid-level trim up, there is also a windscreen defroster. I didn't get a chance to test it, but I did notice it takes ages for the rear window defroster to do its job. And the heated steering wheel quickly becomes lukewarm, as if the car was conserving energy for the hybrid powertrain. Above the wireless charger, there is one more place for a phone or some other bits and bobs. There are also good cup holders, small storage under the armrest, and a decent sized glove box. The door pockets are also good size, and the doors cover the sills. In the back there is something that Honda owners love their cars for, and that's the magic seats. You raise the seat like that and suddenly you have all this space for irregular shaped objects. And when you fold the backrest, you get a flat loading area. Just be careful because the cushion drops into the footwell, so you can't keep anything behind the front seats with the seats folded. Legroom is even better than in the previous generation HRV. This is a car that 4 full-size adults can travel in comfortably, or parents with tall teenagers. Door pockets have been replaced with small cup holders. Also, cup holders in the armrest are on the small side. What was once a cup holder by the floor now is a place for God knows what. The 12-volt socket has been replaced with 2 optional USB ports. And in the main seat pockets, there are smaller compartments for phones. I left the HRV's Achilles heel for last, and that's the smallest boot in its class. It's 335 liters standard or 320 liters on this top trim, which also gets a fancier audio system. Because of the hybrid batteries, you only get this small storage under the floor, and there is one shopping bag hook. However, despite the boot being small on paper, I like how practical it is. Because of the soft cover attached to the tailgate, rather than a hinged parcel shelf, I have easy access to everything in the boot. And with the seats folded, there is a really flat loading area. If you want to camp in your car, the area is about 170 centimeters long, maybe 180 diagonally, and between the wheel arches, it is 100 centimeters wide. Also, you can fold the passenger seat almost flat, so you can get some rest on longer journeys. Tailgate can be opened and closed with gesture. There is also a proximity sensor, like on some VWs, where you press a button and the tailgate starts closing when you take your stuff and leave. However, in the end, you will need to lock the car yourself. Prices of the Honda HR-V start from, you better sit down for this, 30,400 euro, and the test car in advanced style trim costs, better lie down and put away any liquids, 35,300 euro. The fact Honda comes loaded as standard is hardly any consolation. A similarly spec'd VW T-Roc or Kia Niro Hybrid, which are compact crossovers, will cost about the same, but all B crossovers are much cheaper and maybe will reach 30 grand in top spec. The Honda HR-V is a really good car with a spacious interior, but at this price point, it's going to be a tough sell. And how do you like the new Honda HR-V? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.